Oh, we're live.
How about that?
Do you want to wait for people to show up? I don't think they will.
We got like 20 seconds, right?
We'll give the people 20 seconds.
20
They've earned it.
seconds. Yeah. We can
Done
afford
it.
we can afford
they've
20
done this
seconds.
much.
Yeah.
I concur.
It's 10 seconds now.
Phew.
Time flies.
Time she flies.
Mm.
It really does. Do
All right.
it and count it down like it's New Year's Eve.
Deedle.
And that's why it's good to have you back, bud. What's going on, everybody? This is the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, a podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and suck less. Air conditioned in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Adam Johnson.
In some warmth in Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
I have held out as long as I possibly could in this space, but after having Rob from Skid Row come and visit, I broke down. I was like, I've got to get some AC in this place. And so for those of you who are watching, actually on the live stream, you can barely see it, but there's some tubing going on behind me.
In the raw zoom where I see sort of your full frame, I'm clear there's some good tubes going out the window there.
And it is a comfortable 70-ish degrees in here.
Love it.
By design.
Love it.
I'm feeling pretty good about my decision. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's good.
Been a minute.
Man, it's great to be back. I did 10 days with my in-laws, and I do love my in-laws, but 10 days is a lot of time to spend with your in-laws. So
10 days is a lot of time to spend with anybody.
Yeah. I escaped to work for a couple of days, and but we did the whole thing. We were in Minneapolis. We did the Minnesota Zoo, which is a really great zoo. We did the Minnesota Science Museum, which is a really great science museum. Did the Mall of America. Trooped around a lot. Did a lot of good trooping around. And
did you ride that ride where like you can spin upside down on the thing while it rotates? I feel like I've been seeing that on TikTok.
It's like a wheel. It's like what's the ride that goes around in a circle flat, but then the car has like a way that you can activate a brake and it spins vertically as it goes around the circle. We did not do that, but we saw it being done. And I was dealing with some back pain, so I did not actually ride any rides. I sent the family for some. They did the one that is based on, and all the IP there is weirdly, I mean, it's Nickelodeon and Pepsi. So there's a Pepsi ride. I don't know. It's a strange thing to have a ride be after, but it was the Fairly Odd Parents branded roller coaster, which is a four-seater, and it's one car, 4 chairs, kind of 2x2 facing each other, and they rotate as they go along the track. So it's interesting. It's the kid liked that, so it was a good time.
That's good. Did you make it to Paisley Park?
Did not make it to Paisley Park. No. We were also going to see, one of the plans was we were going to see Little Shop of Horrors, which was playing at the Guthrie Theater, which is a really major repertory theater in Minneapolis, and we did not get to that either. So it's a shame. The kid loves that show, but we just sort of couldn't get up for it. There's just great big plans for a vacation, and then reality of what we could do sort of imposed itself, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, when you are traveling as a family, you've got the ambition, the agenda,
100%,
and then you have to couch that with the reality of the situation of what you actually can accomplish.
Exactly right. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So
Sam Schmidt in the live stream said, "Dan the Man is back." They're very relieved that it's not just me.
Listen, you did. I mean, for I've done solo podcasts when you were out of town, and it was a 8-minute episode, I think, because I had just one thing to say and I said it, and pretty thoroughly. You actually credibly filled 20 minutes all on your own. I was pretty impressed.
I did a show, but it's true that the banter itself basically accounts for, a solid amount of what it is that we do.
We fill a lot of time with nonsense, but people seem to enjoy that nonsense. So onward with the nonsense, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I will say this, the response from the episode was really positive. We got a lot of feedback about the way that people approach tips in their world. My favorite out of all of them was Kyle Mank, who is in the Patreon, and Kyle's got his own 90s band, and they're called As If, and he shared his tip jar for their band, which is just a picture of Mark McGrath with a little cartoon bubble next to it that says "Feed Me," and at the top it says "Frosted Tips,"
So brilliant.
which is just god tier.
How,
It's genius.
how are you going to beat it? That's fantastic.
And the general consensus was that's the greatest thing that's ever happened to anyone by anyone.
Yes.
Made by humans. So
Yeah.
Kyle, you're a genius, and everybody agrees.
True.
So there's that.
Yep.
Let's see. In other news, by the time you hear this episode in podcast land, the episode that we did with Rob Hammersmith from Skid Row should be out. And that was a really awesome time. It's the first time I've ever done any sort of in-person interview in the production space that I've got down here at my house, which was really cool. Learned a lot of lessons. Enough things went wrong to figure out how I will do it better next time. But it was a cool conversation, and there's nothing quite like getting the opportunity to kind of draft a little love letter to your local music scene, which is basically what that episode felt like. And it was really fun to kind of reminisce with a guy that I spent a lot of time in the trenches with.
That's cool. That's cool. And you're doing some editing surgery on that now, and
Oh, man.
we'll hear that at some point pretty soon.
Yeah, so the whole thing was clocked in at much over an hour, and I'm currently about, I would say, 30 some odd % into it, just cutting it up in real time. But of course, by the time you hear this, it'll have been out and everything. And it's great. It was a lot of fun, and Rob's a good guy, and he got a cool gig. So I wanted to make sure that he got a chance to share his story. And I think, there's plenty of stuff in there for folks who are looking to do what we do to glean from. And
Awesome.
Find some other stuff.
It's great. It's great.
Speaking of finding stuff, I ended up making a purchase that I had zero intention of doing, but could not really avoid it. I've got a couple of pawn shops in my area, but there's one in particular that just sells really nice stuff, and I frequent it pretty regularly. And we have talked on this show a lot about modelers and Line 6 and different solutions. And I walked in there last week, and they had a Catalyst 60 from Line 6, which is their kind of Helix brained combo amp.
Yep.
And it retails for $300, and they had one for $150. And I was like, is that the best price you can give me? And they said, no, I can give you a better price. And they did. And so I bought it. And so I am now the proud owner of a now latest firmware updated Catalyst 60. And I really like this thing. I like it so much that my intent was, all right, I'm gonna do the thing that it says you can do, and I'm gonna plug the HX Stomp with all of my profiles already in it into the power amp. I'm just gonna play it through the speakers just to see how it sounds. And straight up, I like the built-in sounds better. What I spent the past 3-4 some odd years like tweaking and cultivating.
Sure.
And to be fair, it's just that the impulse response for the speaker that I normally use is kind of specific and sounds great in an intermix. But if you're trying to run it through an actual speaker, because the Catalyst is a guitar amp in the very literal sense. It's not, an FRFR that is trying to replicate what's coming out of the thing. It is very much a guitar amp with a power section. So you're not going to get the same result,
Right.
even though it sounds great. Like the stuff that I've built sounds great through that deal, but I've had much more fun just playing through the presets. It just, as far as like being in the room and playing stuff, it sounds better with what's already there.
That's
so
good.
Why fight it?
That's good. I usually say presets always suck, but that's because they're not built for your guitar, your fingers, your pickups, your cables, your output apparatus, whatever that is. If it's a PA or it's an amp, really, they're built for very specific things that aren't the things that you own, and so you shouldn't expect them to sound great off the bat. But if you can take the output hardware off the table for that, and they're built for the speaker and the amp, the gain stages they're playing through, I can see those presets might actually be pretty ripping. So that's cool.
And so that's, this starting this week is, it's just balls to the wall as far as gigs go.
Yeah.
We've got 2 this week, and then there's 1 every weekend between now and basically the end of September. And actually, I haven't gotten a full confirmation of this, but just randomly on Tuesday, I got an email from a guy who had booked us for another date in September, and was like, "Hey, I've got another corporate event. Do you want to play the Tabernacle on like a Thursday in September?" And for people who aren't familiar with what that means, the Tabernacle is one of the most iconic performance venues in Atlanta. It was an old church from like the turn of the 20th century that in 96 they turned into a house of blues back when the Olympics in Atlanta happened. And ever since then, it's just been this performance venue. It's a Live Nation venue. And not the first Live Nation venue the band has played, but one that I have gone and seen a bunch of incredible shows at. And I can't I can't fathom what something like that would be like. And I may not have to worry about that, because in the next month or so, I won't have to imagine it, because it will have happened.
That's cool.
And again, this is just one of those things where it's like, if you stick around long enough doing the thing that you are good at, these kinds of things just happen.
Yeah.
And so a venue that I couldn't have imagined my original projects playing in a million years, my silly cover project will get to do, and get paid like actual money, not just, opening slot, $100 split 20 ways,
Right. Good. That's great.
So that's pretty incredible. What has not been incredible is the behind the scenes administrative stuff for this thing that's happening on Thursday. So I'd spoken about this on last week's episode, that there was I had to take out an insurance policy and just trying to jump through a bunch of hoops. Well, in the process of figuring out what policy I needed to get, they actually doubled the amount that I was supposed to file for. And then when I filed for the claim and got the certificate, the insurance company emailed me the next day and rejected the claim.
Oh.
Which is really interesting. It's never happened before. And they were like, "Well, what you do isn't what this policy is for." And I said, "Well, that's really weird, because I've literally done 3 policies with you guys in the past 12 months, and it's never been a problem up until now." So I went back and forth with them. They said that they would do, whatever they could to make it happen. But I've really got like 24 hours to get this figured out, or I need to go with a different vendor. And that's just all there is to that. So that's been a little stressful.
Did you cross some dollar value of coverage that made them look at it more closely or something?
That is probably what happened, because like I said, I doubled what we normally would, would cover, because it's typically we put out $1 million policy, which sounds insane, where you're just like, I'm just a regular person, but I just had to write out a $1 million insurance policy for an event.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, psych, it's not 1 million, it's 2 million. And so apparently when you cross over $1 million, they start paying more attention to it. So, like I said, I feel like it was just a miscommunication, and hopefully we can get it sorted. But, I do have a plan B. I just need it to start, really, I got to get it figured out ASAP.
Yeah.
As far as that kid goes, this is the one with the radio station. Hopped on a logistics call. Things look good to go. I'm going to get to utilize some of our motion backgrounds, because we got a big old LED wall behind us.
Sweet.
The only wrinkle with this whole situation is that it is uncovered as far as the stage goes. And, it's been just blazingly hot.
Right.
And so they pushed the start time back an hour. So we're supposed to start at 7 p.m. local, which should mean that the sun is all behind, the buildings and that kind of thing. But with the mains freaking out at the July 4th thing, I am super apprehensive. So our front of house guy is bringing another pair of powered tops just in case. Better be safe than sorry.
Sure.
And this is also the first time we are implementing the Maestro DMX into a live show. So I've got all of my gear kind of laid out and trying to figure out the best way to get all that set up, while also hopefully not melting. That's the big part.
Yeah, you don't want to melt.
I would prefer to avoid it.
Yeah.
Other things this coming Saturday, after the Thursday gig, we have we're doing the 80s prom, which we've done a couple of years, which is at the Southern Fried Gaming Expo, which is this really cool event. And it's one of those things where it's like, I do this gig, it doesn't pay what we normally make. We make roughly half of what we normally do, but the event itself is so cool. And we basically get, carte blanche to go anywhere we want and see whatever we want to see. And it's just a lot of fun. But we did get a sub drummer for this gig, and I hopped on a Zoom call with that guy today, kind of talked through some things. And I've had a lot of experience trying to explain what band helper is to completely unwashed people. And it's real tough. And I hate that because it is such a fantastic platform, and it is so helpful and so useful. But god darn, the UX on that thing is just a real ball buster.
It is. Now, I'm not sure. I don't think I even told you about this separately. At our last rehearsal, we experimented with the screen sharing functions that are built into it.
Yeah, the beaming.
Yeah. So there are two modes. One is that it can send actions, page down, pick a song, that kind of thing. The problem is one action it doesn't send is page scaling. So if you open a song and it wraps and you pinch to zoom it, that zoom doesn't happen over on your remote instances of it. And it pages down to different locations on each of them, depending on their zoom level. So that's a whole mess. But there's also a way to send the screen output itself, not commands, but here's what it looks like. And so we tried that at our last rehearsal, and man, it really locked us in. Like I was really able to drive it from my feet with, by the way, my MIDI automations I've been playing with. My bassist, who's relatively new to the band and sort of getting his head around all the transitions of our medleys and stuff, I could walk him right through it. I could page right through the big song that is the four things all back to back and, describes as you get there what the transitions all feel like. And he nailed it. He nailed it completely without having to touch his iPad. And it's great. We're going to set that up and have that be how we do it, because it's just too good.
Awesome. So another project that is band helper adjacent is a friend of mine who I've been in a bunch of projects with is starting 2 new projects, and he decided that he wanted to set up a prompter rig for himself.
Yeah.
So there is this local company, which I'm not going to name because they went out of business. They just were like, hey, we're getting out of the game, which is too bad, because once Amber saw this thing, she's like, I want one. I was like, you can't have one because they're no longer for sale. But it is the computer monitor in a speaker wedge configuration, but it's super lightweight. It's less than 10 pounds, but it's the full, footprint of a speaker wedge. It's got like a 27-inch, LED monitor in it. And I was trying to figure out the best way to set this up where it's basically showing the output of an iPad on the screen. And I reached out to people in our community about the best app options, and I was like, besides Band Helper, what are your suggestions? And folks gave me a bunch of them, and I really was hoping that OnSong was going to do the job, because it seemed like the most straightforward option. And so I threw $30 down on their basic level. $30. Only to find out that the things that I needed it to do, like output from an iPad to another screen, not possible.
Huh.
You have to spend, I think, another $60 a year to unlock that feature.
Wow.
So everything's behind a paywall, and I was so disappointed, because I remember I was using OnSong back when they first were released back in 2012, 2014. And they had just nickeled and dimed that whole thing down to
Mhm.
nothing. So I spent $30 on a product that I can't use, but I went to Band Helper and got all the features I was looking for and then some for less than half of that $30.
Right.
$16. It does everything.
Yep.
More than I need. So as much as we're frustrated with, a lot of those things, Band Helper's the best deal out there.
It's for
And
sure the
I
best
mean,
I've found. You know, it is so full of features that it's really overwhelming. But I mean, it's a function of the guy who built it, Arlo, has been evolving it over a long time with a whole lot of input, and you know, I think that the journey I've been on with it in the last couple of months sort of shows it's been what 4 or 5 something years that I've used it, and I used Setlist Helper, its little brother, before that. Um, and it's been fine. I've used a slice of its features and it's been fine. And now I'm starting to evolve into the more, you know, rich world of what it can do, and it's there for me. So I think it's pretty great. I think it's a pretty great app.
I've got no notes.
There you go.
It does what it needs to do and then some. And I've got my gripes, but there's just nothing like it.
Right.
And so, it's going to be the thing that we choose.
Indeed.
So let's see. Other things we're prepping for is this 90s gig. I think we finally, with a week to go, we finally figured out the songs we're going to play.
Good.
But man, there's some real bangers that I've never played before in a band that I feel like are kind of underutilized. And maybe, again, this is just, I can only speak for, the experience in my market. But there's a bunch of tunes that we've been working up. And the one that I've been really excited with is what's it called? The Only Difference by the Wallflowers.
Oh,
It's not one of those super obvious ones, but it was the second single after One Headlight. But from like an energy standpoint and like lyrically and melodically, it is a badass song. It's a great song.
cool.
So really enjoyed working through that. Been working through She's So High, Tal Bachman. I posted that solo break in the Patreon.
Yep.
So I just
Yep.
it is, in my opinion, I don't know if I can think of a better, just perfect solo from that era. There are a lot of great guitar solos from the 90s, but if you're talking about, 2 8 counts
Right.
with that much kind of melodic intention, I don't know if there's anything quite like it.
Yeah.
It's really phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one.
And so that's just been a blast. We decided we're going to pull in some 90s country because Amber, I think rightfully so, had some things to say about the caliber of material from the 80s versus the 90s. Because the thing that she really loves about what Members Only does is that she gets the chance to sing these really like monumental,
Yeah.
like showstopper barn burner songs.
Right.
And there's a lot of female fronted rock and pop music from the 90s, but it definitely has this kind of somber, kind of down vibe to it.
Yeah.
And she was like, if you want me to be excited about this thing, I need you to find me a Shadows of the Night from the 90s. And I was talking with our guitar player Joey and was like, I think I figured this out. If you want those kinds of songs, they're from the 90s, they're there, but they're country songs. And so Amber was like, well, have you found me a Shadows of the Night? I said, yeah, I have. Said, it's called Independence Day by Martina McBride. And her head literally exploded. Like it made a mess. It went everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was literally the thing. She's like, all right, I'm in. Like, I gave her that one song and she was like, yep, that's what I was looking for.
There you go. Done.
And so because we're adding that song, we're going to do, Man, I Feel Like a Woman, which we already do.
Sure.
Well, we're going to add Life is a Highway.
Good.
We already do Friends in Low Places. There was talk about doing that, the Auctioneer song that John Michael Montgomery does, the Hey Pretty Lady, Won't You Give Me a Sign? I don't think we're going to make it though.
Yeah.
I think it would go over well. I just don't know. We just don't have time.
Right.
And not only, so we've got that one going on, and we actually tagged on another 90s show in 2 weeks time.
Cool.
So like I said, this fall is like just exploded over the past 3 weeks. And so now we are just up to our eyeballs in work, and it's great because these kids aren't getting any cheaper.
No, they don't. Yeah.
We had to bring the HVAC guy in. I got my guy Jimmy HVAC. That's how he is on my phone.
Jimmy HVAC, sure.
Jimmy HVAC.
Yep.
And between that and getting the AC repaired in my car, there's just a lot going on. So the more gigs, the better.
It's good to have
Just
a full
pile
dance
'em on.
card at this time. Yeah. We have a new Strange gig coming up next weekend, and we haven't been able to, between travel and people out of town, and Taylor's got the Rona now.
Oof.
Yeah, hopefully she'll be better by Saturday. But we just haven't had a chance to really rehearse much. So we're gonna get together Tuesday. But it's all muscle memory stuff. Hopefully, my one exception, of course, is Ben, my new bass player, who's gigged with us once, and that was in March. So it's been a pretty slow spring and summer, and so we got a little work to do. I think, before we're really ready to stand on our feet. But I'll be driving the charts across his iPad for him, so he won't have that excuse for getting lost. So
That's good.
yeah. So we're gonna get together, I think Tuesday night, and be ready for that show on Saturday. And then the big mission for us is the first outing of the 80s project, which will be first Saturday in November, and still working toward that, getting tracks together and getting set pieces together and picking my lighting upgrades and building my plywood Rubik's cubes and all that good stuff.
Yep. But the I really think the 80s thing is going to go over gangbusters for you guys. And once you kind of get the infrastructure in place, yeah, I think you'll be able to write your own ticket.